What is up, Rad Potential YouTube, and welcome to the Rad Potential YouTube channel. We are fixing to assemble a Series 3 Rx7 dash here in this video. As you can see, I've got all my stuff laid out here. We've got the dash sub-harness, the HVAC controls, which on this one, this is a GSLSE, so the HVAC controls are electronic. They have motors and stuff. We got freshly painted, cleaned up dash plastics here. The dash has been freshly restored with Sim vinyl paint, and I don't know if I'm like to be super stoked about it or to not be stoked about it, or if this stuff's gonna just clean up. But if you can see here, see how it's like, looks like when you have black trim, it's like faded. It's getting some white spots. Now, I don't know if that's for me, like with lack of coverage. Like, did I just not spray it on thick enough? I don't know. I will say, literally, the entirety of the glove box door looks like that. So, comment below if you've used that stuff before and have had issues with it. The top of the dash still looks fantastic. It's just in some of these little odd side areas, so it'll probably get touched up once I get it in the car. I don't anticipate putting this in the car without scratching it in some way, shape, or form, so we'll touch it up when it's in the car. But first, before we start going into this, I want to make it a point. This is the reason that there's only one video last week, and it was kind of all jacked up, and anyways, basically, I didn't feel that well last week. Not going to say that I had the COVID, that I had whatever, but I had a gnarly headache on Monday and Tuesday, and I would attribute it to when I was in here working on vert truck, doing all this welding, because my eyes just burned really bad. I mean, I think welding burned my eyes. Now I wear a helmet, and it's got the auto dimming thing, and I have it set pretty dark, but I may turn it up a little bit darker. And coming from somebody who I do not spend tons of time behind the welder, okay? The 3 hours I spent behind the welder there is probably the longest time I've ever welded in one day, or the most time I've ever welded in one day. When you do exhaust or things like that, you know, you takes 10 seconds, you burn one piece in, move on to the next one. But when you're in here, you know, stitching and welding together a whole new floor, the whole deal for vert truck there, when you weld in and build and make all new rear suspension mounts, and it's 1/4 inch plate, and you're burning it in real slow, it takes forever, man, it cooked my eyes, and that really just took away from me being able to get anything done. And I'm guilty, as I'm sure a lot of you are, as I don't let myself recharge to 100% before I start back at work. I'll take a day off and be like, oh, I'm good, and then just ship it. So this week I kind of just took a little bit more of a break and really tried to get myself back, you know, healthy, and you know, that accompanied with all the dust and whatever. My allergies were jacked up and wasn't the best week. So take care of your body, because it's the only one you got, at least for now. So first things first on this dash, I'm going to go ahead and pop all these plastic bits back out of here. I just had them in here to store them. Then I'm going to flip this dash over, and I'm going to lay the dash harness inside it. So on these cars, the later model cars, so not your 78 to 83 cars, but 84, 85 cars, the dashes have a harness that rides inside the dash that plugs into the main chassis harness via these two large plugs right here. So this is the race car. These are those two large plugs chilling here. They hang to the driver's side of the central heater box. There's a couple other little harnesses in here that I'll have to chill and get out of the way. One thing that I did state wrong in a previous video, the gauge cluster will have to go in after you put the dash in, but you can't assemble the entirety of the dash. I'm hoping to be able to assemble this dash pretty much back to its original factory condition, or at least everything that I'll need in the race car. Obviously, I'm not going to be putting in the under the column vent or the vent here. As with the roll cage, I've cut a lot of the vents and ductwork out. It will still maintain a fully functional heat and defrost system, mainly the defrost system. The electric That is an overdrive switch. We don't need that. Where's that harness come from? Oh, that's running down, coming down through here. Interesting. Was this car an automatic at one point? Very well could have been. Right here, dimmer switch. Need to clean this stuff off of it. But it will still maintain the electric fuel door popper and the electric hatch popper on this car. If you can open the hatch, you can pop the fuel thing manually. So there's no sense for me to pull the wires out. The fuel door is still going to live on this side, and I don't have a like a white one that has a key. The 79 and 80s had a key, so you could just go back there and turn it and open it. I prefer to just leave the keyed ones because they never fail. But so be it. I've had to crawl back and pop the hatch manually and then reach in and pop the fuel door manually too many times, and I'd rather just keep the key. But on this car, we're putting it back to stock. So I'm going to go ahead, and y'all are going to start seeing me tear into this and put all this stuff back together. We'll get this thing, like I said, get the harness back in it, and I'll get back with you guys whenever I run into any sort of issues, if I do. All the main switches and stuff I've got chilling in here. Inside the glove box, so I got to figure that out. The other thing, and it might have left it in here. Yep, there it is. So this piece here is the heat controller right here. So it sits in here horizontally like this and mounts in there like that. Yeah, it mounts like that to this hole. And as you turn it hotter or colder, this is basically the only piece of mechanical stuff that happens in here. So the heater switch, there's an actual valve in the coolant pipe on the heater core that moves. And when you turn it to cold, it closes the valve. When you turn it to warm, it opens the valve. So that has to go on. And then you just simply take, when we install the dash here in a little bit, you take the little hook here and just hook it onto the actual lever on the valve itself. So now that I'm done rambling for forever, let's get cracking. Alrighty folks, we have reached the end of this video. Unfortunately, my last outro that I filmed got corrupted because my camera died while I was filming it, and it really made things mad. So we're refilming that right now. So, for those that came here to learn how to install and take out your dash, it's actually really simple. Of course, mine came with it already taken apart, and then I put it back in the previous little bit there. So, the dash itself is held in with 10mm screws here in the center. There's a brace that is mounted to the chassis. There would also be a brace mounted here that would have 2 screws in it that are combined with your center console. So the center console's got 2 bolt holes that go through the dash and then into the car. On each corner, you're going to have 10mm screws here and here, and on the other side. And then there's 3 10mm screws that are under your defrost vents that go 1 in the middle and 2 on the ends. Once you have all those bolts out and all of the stuff that need to be disconnected behind the dash disconnected, the whole dash will come out. So now, the stuff that needs to be disconnected underneath the dash, your ductwork. You don't have to disconnect the ductwork from the dash, but you have to disconnect it from the heater and stuff. There's two main defroster lines. These big clear ones that are up in here, you need to disconnect those from the central HVAC unit. There's also going to be, actually I think that's it. Because the other lines that come to your quarter vents over here, actually feed from the center, and the center just mates up, like sits on the actual HVAC. It doesn't actually have a connection there. You will need to disconnect your heater control, like the temperature valve. There's a little wire on the left side of the heat HVAC box, which you saw me messing with the wire. It actually goes, it's what this thing is controlled from right here. There's a little mechanism and a wire goes around to the bottom left side of your heater box. And that thing just pops off and pops out, and then that should leave that attached to the dash. It'll come out with the dash. You'll need to disconnect these wires right here that I have tucked up underneath this. So this section of wire all goes to your actual blower control motor over here, and then there's another wire here that goes to the blower control motor. This one, it comes from your control unit. All of these come from the dash sub-harness that is within the dash. In theory, you shouldn't even have to take your radio out. You can leave your radio in, the whole dash will come out with it still in there, and then you can service the radio from a different spec. Right here you've got those other two bolts. The cluster, you will need to remove that. In order to get it off, it just tips down like this. You might just work it back and forth, but it tips down, and then the whole thing comes out. Don't try to pull it out straight. It doesn't fit. And then you will need to unbolt your steering column. So there's two 12-millimeter bolts that go up through the column from the bottom, and they mount to the dash and are pinched between the dash and the pedals. So you need to take those two bolts out. I would say it's going to be easier for you to get the dash out if you remove a lot of these smaller panels. So all of these little valence panels, the one under the glove box, remove the glove box, just stuff like that. It all comes out with little Phillips head screws like this. Just a small Phillips head, kind of like a sheet metal screw. It's just easier and less risk to remove them individually than it is to try to take them all out on the dash. Do you need to unplug any of the switches or anything that is mounted to those panels in order to disconnect the dash? No. So you could leave them all in there. You will need to remove the ones under the column just to get the column unbolted, and then you need to get the whole dash like over the top of your column. So definitely take your steering wheel off and pull your shifter out and make that a bajillion times easier. But that's the gist of it. Your fuse block mounts to the dash panel back up here, kind of back up like that. So you will need to unbolt that as well. Two little bolts at the center of it. You don't have to unplug anything. It'll just fall down. So that's the 411 on removing your dash and installing your dash. Everything I just told you, you got to make sure you put back in when you hook it back up. There's two huge connectors behind the dash to plug it into, which you've already seen. And this sim paint really came out. It came out great. I was worried about it. As you saw earlier in the video, it's getting some like white. Just kind of looked like it had faded, and it hadn't been out in the sun. I mean, it's been in my enclosed shop. It is cold, winter here, but you can see the trouble areas look like $1 million now. So, and even my patch job right here, like I said, I wasn't trying to make it perfect. I know it's definitely not perfect, right? It's probably like 60%. But for this being a race car, I didn't need to source a whole nother dash. And it looks way better than a big black hole right there. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's a huge win. And we didn't spend an obscene amount of time on that, because there is like time versus payoff in the end kind of thing, right? If I'm restoring this to be perfect, then I would have went and got a dash. But I'm restoring this so it looks epic and it's ready for somebody to take to the races. And that's like the goal. Everything's addressed, everything's freshened up, everything looks sick, and then you can take it to the track, take it to the rally stages, go beat the crap out of it. It's easy to work on, it's clean, and everything's not rusty, crusty, and not painted. So at least every single nut and bolt have been touched. Not that every nut and bolt's freshly zinc plated, but every nut and bolt's been touched. You know it's right. So with that, drop a comment or a question below. A comment with any questions below, and I will do my best to answer them about you getting this dash installed or uninstalled. This is very much a Series 3 only video. The earlier model Rx7s have a totally different dash, as you saw with me kind of just panning through some of the cars. The dash actually comes apart in two, like the top half and the bottom half on those. It's a little bit different, and you really just have to start taking stuff apart. It doesn't come out as all one piece like this, so keep that in mind. I can make a video on one of those eventually. I'll probably have to pull the one out of the silver car or something when we find another shell for that. But until then, that's pretty much it. Fortunately, got home from work today, and it's still a little bit light outside, which has been epic. And like I mentioned earlier in this video, if it made the cut, make sure to take care of your physical health. Calvin and I really pushed ourselves this past weekend, and just between all the dust and the welding lights and the whatever, just have been having a little bit of a headache last week. So make sure to take care of yourself and eat right, exercise, do the deal. So thank you guys very much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Keep it rad. Buddy!